The Medical Courier Connection podcast is brought to you by Key Software Systems. We believe that every delivery has a story, and it starts with you. That's why we built an ecosystem uniting accounting, delivery, tracking and shipping, reporting, and more to not only bring full delivery transparency to your customers, but to reduce errors and inefficiencies that stand in the way of over-delivering on your customer expectations. We'll drive the heavy lifting that keeps your businesses innovative with latest technology so that you can focus on building connections with your customers.
Hey everybody, Ken with Integrity Medical Courier Training.
We are providing on-site training in Roseville, Minnesota.
A man's digits turn blue due to too much cannabis use. A woman in Melbourne, Australia dies after being scratched by Minty, her cat. Stole the hearse and dumped the body on the side of the road, still strapped to the gurney, and then continued on with their joyride. A dog had to be put down after it was crushed by a package thrown over a garden fence, its owners claim. So, stay compliant, my friends. Get all your medical courier training needs from us at www.integritydelivers.com.
Happy tax season, and welcome back to the Medical Courier Connection podcast.
Oh, yeah, you should have done the entree with that Beatles song, Taxman. If I would have known it was all about taxes, we could have scored that up.
I know. We would have had to pay for that, but...
Yeah.
Oh, you can enter it in post-production. So,
yeah. It's like 20.
All right, it is another Medical Courier Connection podcast. It is Friday, and we try and do these recordings on Friday. So here we are. We missed last week. And so we are here again talking about all things medical courier related. And, you know, the thing is, a lot of small courier companies or people that are getting into the business, they want to start their own medical courier business. But there are some things that they tend to overlook, and administrative is a huge part of it. So we are going to talk about administrative issues that you should be focusing on for your courier service. But first, we always like to open up and talk about what's new, what's happening, what's going on. So tomorrow, and you know, registration will be closed by the time you guys see this podcast. But tomorrow, we're doing our first public viewing of the Medical Courier Financial Masterclass. You want to talk a little bit about that, Linda?
Yeah, it's kind of been born out of people who have taken our First Steps class and they just need more. They aren't used to running their own company yet. They don't really know what all is involved in the startup of a business. And so we kind of take you from the very, very basic of, you know, what is even your personal budget? Do you even know what that is? And then we walk through all of the different aspects of building your company from a financial perspective. We give you lots of resources. We talk about understanding the importance of tracking your expenses and your income, so you can maintain financial stability as you grow your business and attain your own wealth goals. We explore common deductions and credits that the courier industry is typically going to be able to use. And we talk about like factors regarding what influences your pricing and, distance, delivery, time, that kind of thing. We give you some resources and ideas about different vendors that you might want to check out and use. We explore a couple different pricing models. We talk about that. We even will build a route and show you how to achieve your income goal for the month. And we also talk about real world pricing strategies and even a little bit of contracting. So it's very in depth. It's all based on our experience, my experience, 30 plus years in the transportation field of healthcare, and and with all the administrative background that I have that goes along with that. And so, I think it's a lot. It's sometimes like drinking from a fire hose, but the really awesome thing that I think that I like about this class is that it's very interactive. When we do it live, it will be, you have a question, we stop, you ask it, we explain it, we talk about it, We look at it from the different perspectives. So even though the actual content itself is maybe 45 minutes or so, we have in the testing phases, we've taken as long as 3.5 hours because of the questions that have come up. And we've been able to add some of those more common questions into the class itself. So I think it's going to be really beneficial for people that are getting started in this industry.
Yeah, it's a great format and an opportunity for people to get their questions answered. But you're right, it is a deep dive. I've been
It
through the
is.
class several times. It's not for the financial faint of heart, but think of it this way. Some medical couriers come into the industry with a DoorDash mentality. And they think, okay, I'm going to sign in at 8 o'clock and I'm working until 10:30, and I need to make $120. And they got that number in their mind. And once they hit that number, they bail out and they're done for the day thinking, I made a bunch of money today. But then you start to deduct what your
Right.
expenses are.
Yep.
And DoorDash depends on people not knowing their numbers, so that you get thousands of people that come into DoorDash every day and thousands who are like, you know what, I'm losing my shirt, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And the thing is, again, you start with a $120 figure. Well, okay, how much did you spend on gas? Let's say $40. Now you're looking at 80. Then how many times did you eat? Let's just say 2 at $15 each, so that's 30 off. Now you're looking at $50, and then out of that 50, you got to pay your car payment, your rent, you got to pay for all the maintenance, insurance, all of that overhead. And so, you cannot come into the medical courier industry and start your own business with a DoorDash mentality. You have to master your finances. And that's something that you've done. I mean, your whole life, you've been a numbers person, which, makes it really easy for me because I'm not. But, Dave Ramsey used to say, there's a nerd in every relationship.
Yeah.
That's you. You're the nerd. It's important. If we don't keep an eye on the outgo and the income, we could get blindsided. And there's been several times throughout the years, Hurricane Katrina, things that happened with our first medical courier company where our client didn't give us the work they promised right away. And we still had payroll to pay and bills to pay and all of that. So, wow, you have to just be aware of those possible things that might blindside you or sink you. And knowing that 2 out of every 10 small businesses that start up don't make it past the first year. That's an important figure to think about. And let's see what you can do to avoid, having that happen to you. And that's really what the class is about, setting them up for success in their finances.
Yeah. And, I want to say, I'm not an attorney and I'm definitely not a certified public accountant, but I bring 33 years of experience to the table. And these are all the pitfalls that we've experienced, all of the wins we've experienced, all the wins we've heard about from all of our clients over the years, and all of the things that they too have said, oh man, this happened to us. We put on live conferences and did fireside chats around the table with lots of courier company owners who have failed, they have succeeded, they have tripped and fallen, they have gotten right back up again and ran with it and made it themselves successful. So, we've got all of that built into this class in as far as experience goes. So, hopefully, also I wanted to say we'll probably go ahead and record it at some point soon. It will be available on our online courses as well. It won't have that interaction. So for people who are pretty good with their own numbers, they kind of have a mind for their own budgets and that kind of thing. But if they're just getting started, that would be the course for them for sure, because they don't need that interaction, and they can always email us too if they have a question afterwards. But we'll probably try to do this course live once a month, just for the folks that really need that extra interaction.
Yeah, I've found that people have different learning styles. And some people want to be self-paced and they don't want to be bothered. Just let me click on it and let me view it. I'll take care of it. Other people love that group interaction because some people in the group will ask a question that they hadn't thought of.
Right.
And now you're thinking, your mind is open to something that you hadn't thought about. You're taking notes, you're writing it down. live webinars are my favorite way for people to learn, and we've had webinars where we've had over 80 people in the specimen handling class. But yeah, it's a great format. So
Yeah, for
really
sure.
exciting to add this class to our platform,
Right.
because again, finances are everything.
Yeah.
Patient care is number one. I mean, your life is also right up there, but if you don't mind your finances, and if you don't set things up properly, you don't price yourself properly, if you don't have the certifications in place, you could get dinged, and that could torpedo your business as well. So we are quickly building our platform, our company, into that one-stop shop for all things medical courier related. Why would you need to go anywhere else?
Right. Absolutely. And with the experience that we have between not only the administrative side, but the healthcare side, we've grown so much. I mean, our customer service rep was a driver for a national lab. He's been a driver for all of our companies. We've owned companies since 1996. We've been in several different markets and owned companies.
I was
And
3.
so, I mean, and Chris, Chris is our marketing director. He drove for us for a while. We believe that what we bring to the table is that level of experience, and it's so important. There's so many influencers out there who are like, I just got a job 3 weeks ago as a courier. Let me tell you how to become one. You don't have a clue how to become one. You may have won yourself a contract because you had a streak of luck, but as far as knowing the ins and outs and all the different the things that can get you, like the germs. I mean, do you know what kind of germs you're walking into? You've only been a patient on one side of that lab. Do you know what's behind the scenes there? We do. We know. So, and we know about the traffic situations, and we know, I mean, there's so many aspects to this business. So
it's interesting. All you need is a cell phone, and suddenly you're an influencer,
right.
And you can set up your own Linktree account or your own Stan account, and suddenly you're selling courses, and people are just buying them like crazy because they'll sign into TikTok and they'll see a new face, and this new face is talking about how they made $500 in a day or whatever, and then they're going to sell you courses how you can make $500 a day. I jokingly say someone is getting 6-figure rich. It's more than likely the influencer, but it is a minefield out there, and people have to be careful what they're purchasing and who they're purchasing it for. Like you said, someone that just got into this industry 3 weeks ago, and there's a gal on TikTok that's doing that. She's now selling her course for $25 a piece. Well, people are buying it. And so, that's another interesting point you brought up. We bought a course several weeks ago from an influencer. It cost us less than $50, but when you looked at the material, it was clearly a copy of a copy of a copy. It was really, really bad.
Yeah. You could tell that person had taken information from somebody else's course. They had also, it was just PDFs. What are you going to do with that? How are you going to know what to do when you walk into the lab and you've got bins all over the back of those counters, in the fridge and in the freezer, and you miss something? What happens to that patient? We are here because of patient care.
Right.
We're not here to make, to make money off of your backs. That's not what we're doing here.
Right.
We're trying to give you the tools to be a successful entrepreneur who wants to, or independent contractor, who wants to be able to service this industry, because sure, you need to make money. I get that. We all got to pay our bills. But let me tell you something. If you are not aware of what you're doing in those places, the risks involved, and I'm a big risk person because, I've done emergency management classes. I've done all of that. It's not something to play around with. Having the right coolers, having the tools you need to go in and out. If you have a spill, do you know what you're going to do? Are you just going to walk away? What if that person had hepatitis? What if that person had HIV? What, do you know? Are these people that are telling you that just buy my course, do they know? So be careful. I mean, the other thing too is that I wanted to mention is, Justin, our customer service guy, just had a person contact us that he thought he was reaching out to one of the partners that we work with, and clearly it wasn't, and he got scammed. And thankfully he was only out, I think it was less than $50, maybe less than $100. So it wasn't a huge amount of money, but I'll tell you what, the writing was on the wall. This person was harassing him by text message. This person was telling him that he's not an influencer. No, he's an investor. Send me your money. Send me sign up for this Bitcoin, sign up for all these different things. Nothing to do with teaching you how to be a business.
Yeah.
Wow.
And thankfully at some point the guy was like, this doesn't feel right, and called. And he was 100%. Yeah, it wasn't right. The people that we deal with here, we have vetted them. They are legit. They are for real. And that's why we're limited in how many people we accept as companies that we refer to, because we want to make sure that we're not sending you to somebody who doesn't have the experience and they're just out to win your money. That's not what this is about. We want to make you successful.
Yeah, 6-figure rich influencers that are now selling OSHA and HIPAA courses. It's like you're at 7-Eleven and you got all these things that you needed. And oh, by the way, grab a Snickers bar on the way out the door.
Yeah.
That's what their OSHA and HIPAA courses are. It's a Snickers bar on the way out the door. And the other thing is, if you have an incident, an exposure incident, or a HIPAA violation, they're not going to support you. They're not going to help you learn how to report it properly, how to navigate it properly. We've been doing this for 21 years. Mm-hmm. We've helped several people navigate situations. And that was the other thing that I found out. When we had Keith Carrington on our podcast a couple of weeks ago, this is something that I didn't actually realize. But he said that Office for Civil Rights, they're the enforcement arm for the HIPAA laws. Okay, they're going to investigate and determine possible fines and penalties. They get their funding through fines and penalties.
Right.
So courier companies that say, you know what, I don't have to get, trained or compliance or certified because I'm never going to get audited. I'm never going to get investigated. Well, think again. If OCR is actually getting their income from fines and penalties, no one's out of the loop. No one's off the radar.
Well, and they may not, the individual courier is probably not going to be the target, but I'll tell you who is the target. The companies you're working for. You're going in and out of these labs. Yeah. They have so many places and so many people that they have, and rules and regulations that they have to follow to keep their accreditation. So they're having to follow, 5 or 6 different policies and procedures to keep their accreditation. They're the ones who are going to get audited. And then it's a trickle down effect from there. Are your couriers, do you have the contract with them? Have they signed a business associate agreement? Do you know what they're doing with your stuff? Is it encrypted? I mean, they're asking you all of these questions. And when that HHS or OCR person knocks on your door or calls your line, there's going to be answers you need to be able to provide.
Keith used that example of a situation where there's a courier company and one of their drivers had a breach and there were no BA agreements in place with the couriers. And so he said that the courier company would then be on the hook for that legally and financially. So it's so important to make sure that you're understanding, if you're servicing any healthcare industry, you got to have your HIPAA compliance in place. You got to have your OSHA compliance in place. Everything needs to be up to date. These certifications are annual. And so, someone in your company needs to take the initiative of making sure you're checking every year that the company's certifications are current and that the individuals are current as well. So ongoing issue, but that's all part of the administrative, the administrative points of action. What are you doing? Do you have control of your finances, your insurances, things like that? Do you have your compliances for your company current as well as all of your drivers? I just talked to a courier company here today they're out of compliance by a few years. But
Mm.
his excuse was, well, we have a high turnover rate, number one, and number two, it's really, really hard to get our drivers in and take the program.
Boy. Okay, administration time. Let me step in right there.
Mhm.
There are so many courier companies that say, well, they're independent contractors. We can't tell them what to do. Oh, yes, you can. What do you think a contract or an agreement is for? You have to put in there that they have to stay compliant. Or you don't have to give them work if they're not going to be compliant.
Yeah.
When your customer is requiring your drivers to be compliant, you darn well better be supplying them drivers that are compliant. Otherwise, the liability on that courier company, they're not going to be happy when they get that bill. So I don't want to hear that. That drives me absolutely crazy when I hear courier owners say that. When you have you can have agreements with employees, you can have agreements with independent contractors. There is absolutely nothing wrong with saying, in order to service the clients in the healthcare industry, you have to have these certain things in place: certification in bloodborne and HIPAA, certification in, if you're running chemotherapy, certification maybe in dental industry, which, by the way, is going to be a new class starting next week for us.
Way to
And
promote,
yeah,
upsell.
heck yeah.
Woohoo!
And then
Yeah.
coming soon. Yeah.
and then the other the of course the big one, the business associate agreement. There's no reason why. And by the way, are you checking the driver's licenses? Are you getting a list from them of their insurance company every year or every 6 months? I mean, why not? Are you training them? Are you making sure that they're taking some kind of driver course so they're safe in the wintertime? I mean, I'm not just talking about just nagging. I'm talking about your workforce is the driving blood of your company. And if you are not protecting that workforce, then you might as well just hang it up today.
So you managed a $5 million plus a year courier company in Denver. How did you keep compliances current with all those drivers? Because they were scattered over several states. How did you guys do it?
5 states, 150 drivers, folks. And I'll tell you how we did it. We trained every single year annually. We had a big, brought everybody in on a Friday night and a Saturday, depending on the routes they were doing. And we would do driver training. We actually had, this is kind of cool. We actually had a former state patrol officer who was driving for us. He was retired, just looking to make some extra money. He came in and did our driver safety training program, and it was amazing. It was so good. And you know what? Most state patrol in all of the states in the country actually have safety training that you can access, and you can play it for your drivers. So, you can put that, again, if it's an independent contractor, take this course. Even if it's not certified, take this course. We want you to be secure and safe. We had rules and regulations about, they had to bring us their driver's license. They had to bring us their insurance. They had to ensure that that their vehicles were safe by signing off on that. We always had an emergency list in case they were ever to be in an accident, which that was born out of one of our downtown bicycle couriers getting hit by a car. And it was right after the owner of our company had bought a smaller company. We had just acquired it. We were working it in, and this girl gets hit by a car, and literally no one even knew what her parents' names were. I mean, it was ridiculous. So out of that was born our dispatch. We now have a dispatch course that's for companies that have dispatchers. So if it's after hours or even in the middle of the day, and somebody gets hurt or injured, or you can't reach someone, maybe the DEA is knocking on your door because there's some missing drugs and they want to know where your driver is. You've got all the information to be able to get a hold of people. And those are the types of things, maybe there's an emergency. Maybe a tornado just came through and you don't know if your driver's okay. Maybe anything. Maybe there's power outages. Where the heck is your driver? We had one driver in Wyoming, in the middle of Wyoming. Nobody could reach him. Our manager finally went out with two other drivers. It was right after a snowstorm. And sadly, they found him. He had gone off the road during the snowstorm, and he had been injured and passed away. And they found him deceased in the vehicle.
Wow.
And that was, this stuff happens. So don't be out there living your life every day like it doesn't happen. It happens. We had another driver he was shoveled in the morning. I'm talking to him on the way to work. He's telling me, I don't really feel good. And I said, well, go home. No, I don't want to go home. I said, I'll cover your route myself. Go home, go to the doctor. And then he starts telling me, well, I'm sweating profusely. And, I'm like, dude, you're having a heart attack. Mm-hmm. Get off the road. Where are you? Where are you? Those were the last words. All he said was, I just want to go home. And he died right there on the phone with me. Yeah. And, I'll tell you, that kind of stuff happens. Are you ready? Are you ready? That's what the whole running a business from the administrative aspect is all about. You have to think ahead for these things that rarely happen, but they do happen. And if you're not ready until they happen, you are smashing into walls and doors trying to figure out what you're going to do next. So don't do that.
How does your administrative recommendations course then kind of lay some of those things out? Because we have that on our website, integritydelivers.com, and that kind of addresses some of that planning and stuff. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we talk a lot about disaster mitigation on there. I use a lot of the websites. Every town should have, especially major cities, but even smaller towns have emergency management plan. They all have a plan, and the states will have a plan. These are public information, by the way. You can go on those sites, just Google search, like for let's say Denver, Colorado emergency management plan. You can read, it can be huge, 7,900 pages or something, and find it there. Chris is pulling that up right now. And do that for your place of business or for your area that you service, and get to know what to expect. You can go to on our admin course. We have tons of links to access that kind of thing. And to be able to build your own emergency management policy for your company. When people take our full course, in our manual, we have a whole administrative section that talks about that as well. So, and it gives resources and things like that.
So I remember we used to have a client in the New York area, and they managed a handful of hospitals, and they were with us for several years. And I remember, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there was a major storm that came in. It was like a hurricane that came in. It was the winter, and it came in off the coast and hit New Jersey and New York and all those areas. Yep. And she emailed me or called me, and she said, and this was like 18 hours before it hit landfall, do we have an emergency management program in place? And I said, yes, you do. It's on the shelf. Pull it out. You should have read it by now. And that's the wrong time to be asking if you've got an emergency plan in place. Well, you've got it. The place is your shelf. Unfortunately, if you got nothing planned out at this time, it's time to bug out. Grab your valuables and everything and get out. Yeah. And so, planning. People don't ever think that, you don't think that a disaster is going to hit you, but we have tornadoes. We have on the West Coast, we have earthquakes. Down south, you have hurricanes that hit the Gulf. And so we have to keep those things in mind. And you got to be prepared. So if you want to be a successful business, stop thinking like an individual courier. Start thinking like a courier business. That administrative recommendations class, if you view it and actually put some of those things in place, is going to set you up for success. So,
absolutely.
Failure to plan to fail.
Make sure you've got a good plan in place that's going to keep you guys safe in the event of an emergency. So if something does come in, a disaster does happen, do you have a way to communicate? What if all the lines are down? What if the towers are down? What if cell phones are not an option? Do you have a backup?
Right.
What are your plans? How are we going to communicate with our drivers and keep them safe? How are we going to do this? The time to figure that out is way before a disaster happens.
Yeah.
So.
There's ready.gov is another great website. They have if you go there, they have how to ready your own personal family, but also how to ready your business. So there's some great that's a great website that we do put in there. It's ready.gov. There you go. And it talks about finances. They tell you to get a copy of your tax returns. How many people have go bags? We're familiar with that term in Colorado because we've had so many wildfires. So a lot of people out here have a go bag. Plus, we're surrounded by lots of military installations. We don't think about that in the business realm. Well, what do we need a go bag for? What if everything goes down? What if there is an EMP, even if it only lasts 3 days? Yeah. What if? How are you going to keep your business running? How are you going to be able to reach your all of your employees or your drivers or your workforce? Or when the Boston Marathon, when there was the bombing there, one of our clients had drivers in that area that he had to get out of there because they had products that needed to get to labs that, and pharmaceuticals that needed to get delivered. And so, that was, those kinds of things, you don't plan for stuff like that, but you really have to plan for stuff like that.
When people doing mountain routes, there's one right there, avalanches.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
I would never think of that until I saw one.
Yep.
Oh yeah. We used to have
rock
a driver.
Slides.
Yeah, we used to have a driver that got caught in rock slides, and he had valuable, important specimens and blood on board, and a lot of times he would be delayed by several hours. So, if there's other routes that you could take, drivers need to be aware of what's going on around them and be ready to take those different routes, even if it adds a couple extra hours on
for
it.
Sure.
That cargo that you've got on board can be life-saving medications or blood. You can't just sit there. So.
Right. Well, the other thing too, and I even hate talking about it, but you've got drivers, your workforce going in and out of hundreds of facilities, more than likely in the course of a month. Are they prepared if they come upon an active shooter? Have you ever thought about that?
That was one of the categories on here too. Actually, it's attacks in public places.
Yes,
is right
absolutely.
At the top of the list. One of the first ones.
Yep.
Well, yeah, and that happened to someone that we knew. Years ago. He was a UPS driver.
Yep.
And there was an active shooter on a workplace, and he just happened to be delivering supplies.
Yep.
And he was the first one that was killed.
He was the first one killed
before the guy went into the building, and so. Got to be aware of the surroundings, be aware of what's going on. I think, Chris, we had a video on TikTok that we did a story of a courier that was robbed at gunpoint several years ago that was delivering lab specimens as well. So situational awareness, really important.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you guys hear Colorado had their first case of measles?
Yes, down in Pueblo. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. They sure did.
Texas and one other state, and then Colorado.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and I know everybody in our family has been vaccinated for that, but I do know people who have chosen not to do that with their own kids, and so as we all go into different labs and different facilities. One of the exposure points for the one in Pueblo was the clinic. So they said anybody who was in that clinic between these hours and this hour, these hours. The time frame that patient was there, if you were there and you haven't been vaccinated or your children hadn't been vaccinated, you could be at risk for exposure. So, so those are, just one more step, that, the administrative side of running a business is going to be the thing that makes or breaks you. Anybody can get out of their car and go pick something up. and get back in their car and deliver it. But if you don't know what you're doing in this field, then you are putting yourself at risk, your family at risk, and the patient at risk. So
think of how it was when the COVID outbreak first hit.
mhm,
There were thousands of couriers across the country
mhm.
that were going into hospitals and labs and clinics, and there wasn't a lot of clarity or knowledge about what was going on.
Yeah.
It took a while for them to shut everything down. And, so couriers, we are on the front lines. And especially in the healthcare industry. That's why when I do my live training, I always tell people you need to be aware, use your cell phone, pay attention of any, pay attention to any outbreaks in your area, going in and out of medical facilities. A lot of times they'll put placards up, especially I remember nursing homes would mention if the influenza was making the rounds. I mean, things like that.
Yeah.
Paying attention to the buildings that you're going into, really, really important. And then taking the proper precautions to protect yourself. There's a lot of couriers that are immunocompromised.
Right.
And so, wow. A medical
Mhm.
courier that's immunocompromised, you better be taking lots of
Mhm.
precautions, right?
Mhm. Yep, for sure.
So
Yeah, and they should know that. I mean, that's something that they need, their self-awareness. A lot of people won't say anything because they think, well, I just won't get the job then. But you have to think, if you get sick, how are you going to make your bills anyway? So protecting yourself is so important.
absolutely.
Mhm.
When we did the medical transportation summit, and I know we're not getting into health right now, but our very first summit, we had Beth Ortiz, our daughter,
Mhm.
came and spoke at that, and hers was all about courier health. And this
Yeah.
is something we never talk about.
Right.
But, I mean, for me personally, I was a courier for 30 some odd years. And every afternoon when my energy started to dip, I would buy a 20-ounce Mountain Dew and a Snickers.
Mhm.
Well, and of course, you're always eating at fast food places, and I never made the right choices. And, that put me, I type 2 diabetic, several pounds overweight. And I was getting sick every winter with skin
Yeah.
infections and all sorts of crazy stuff. So, there's that whole health component. I'm hoping to have Bethany on our podcast when her life slows down a little bit
Yeah.
to talk about that. I'll share one other story. I was at a convention, I think it was CLDA, and I sat next to a guy that we had these round tables, and you sit down to eat. And I sat down next to this guy, and he was probably 550 pounds if you weighed an ounce. I mean, the chair disappeared under him, and he was huge. And we talked a little bit, and it turned out he was a dispatcher for a courier company. And then later that day, I was at another table, and I was talking to a guy, and he had the same lanyard on. I'm like, oh, it's the same company. Turned out that guy was the owner, and he was expressing to me how that his dispatcher was his lifeblood. He didn't know what he would do
Oh
if
my
anything happened
gosh.
to that, because the dispatcher did everything for the company. And I'm thinking, oh yeah,
Yeah.
you're in a position, you're like, this is a time bomb waiting to go on. So
Yep.
Mhm.
couriers, we have to be intentional with our health. You've got to take steps to try and eat healthy.
Yeah.
When you're driving through, choose some healthy options, get out of the car and walk around. Some people think,
Mhm.
well, I go in and out of buildings, I mean, that should be enough.
Yeah.
But it's that heart rate elevation for certain periods of time during the day. So I don't know. We've got to be intentional, because what good is it at the end of your career if you die of a heart attack or
Yeah.
diabetes or whatever, because we didn't take care of ourselves in the long run. So
Well,
health is a big issue.
The
Go
nice
ahead.
part about the future is that they make lunchboxes now that'll keep your food warm,
Right.
for hours. And
Yeah.
the same with cold. You can do anything
Yep.
really. Packing
So
your own
true.
food.
Absolutely so true. Well, and kind of to spin off of the whole healthcare part of taking care of ourselves, a big factor is stress. And that's another reason we did this financial class. If
Yeah.
people don't, the biggest thing that give people heart attacks, and this is just my opinion. I don't have any facts on this, but stress, financial stress,
Sure.
it will kill you if you don't understand, every week, every day, how am I going to make my bills? How am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? It literally is the only thing you think about. You think about it when you wake up. You think about it when you're going to bed. You dream about it at night. I mean, it's not healthy. So having a handle on running your business, running it well, building your wealth, knowing your goals, knowing where you're at throughout the week, throughout the month. Oh my gosh, it just takes off so much of that stress.
You bet.
And that's, that's a big deal.
The courier service, if you're an on-demand courier company, I mean, route has its own stresses. We've had people on routes that broke down. I remember one where we were Christmas shopping and up in Denver, and we got a phone call from a hospital in the mountains. The driver that I hired and trained decided, nah, you're not paying me enough. I'm not doing this. And, I had to leave our activity, our family activity, and drive up to the mountains and get those specimens. So, routes have their own level of stress, but if you're going to be an on-demand courier company, it's nonstop. Well, no, that's not true. You have moments of calmness and boring, punctuated by absolute insanity.
Well, yeah,
orders come in and
but
stuff.
the funny thing is when it's calm, you're like, oh my God, why is the phone not ringing?
Yeah.
Because you can't get past that.
So you're still stressing
that
it's calm.
It.
Oh my God, the phone's not ringing. No business is coming in. What are we going to do?
Right.
Oh my God, the phone is ringing too much. How are we going to handle this? So find ways then to relieve that stress during the day. I mean, the courier industry, and I've talked to several owners about this, and actually I've known a few that have died. They never made it out of the industry. That dream of the courier company owner is to grow your business. And I know several courier owners who got to the point where they were working from home. They would sign into the computer and check on orders, see where their volume is, and then go have lunch with their wife or go take their kids somewhere or whatever.
Yeah.
Certain companies will reach that level where you're just checking in. You've got a manager who's running the company.
Somebody you really trust. Yeah.
Right. But getting to that point takes time.
It's like being a football player. How many of them are out there have really attained that level?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's that way with any business, really. You've got all these people they're just making it, and that's great. If that's where you are, that's what you've achieved. You're okay with it. The stress is off your back. You know what you're bringing in. As long as nothing changes. What are you going to do if something changes? Then your stress shoots back up again. And then there's people who really have that dream of building wealth and just succeeding and having a good retirement and being able to retire.
Right.
Yeah, the goal is to get to that point where maybe if it's building generational wealth, maybe one of your kids is running the business,
right?
And you're able to travel as a couple and go around the country. Hey, listen, I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, that's something that I think about a lot because I would like to explore a little bit of the world before I go on to my eternal rewards. So you have to be, everybody's got that thought in their mind of when their exit date is. For some people, it's, what do I need to do to get my company to the point where I can sell it?
Yeah.
If there's no one that's, and I'm not saying that's us. I'm just saying a lot of courier companies, okay, what do I need to do to get to my company to the point where I can sell it? What's my exit plan?
Right. Or as they age, maybe they want to, their kids are getting older and their kids are showing an interest in that business. For us in this business, we have kind of stepped back and told, our Chris and Justin, especially, as far as like the marketing and all of that, we're a couple of old farts. You guys know the lingo. You know what? They when they meet people, they meet people, and they have a whole different connection than us.
True.
And that's but that is what your business should do. You should start out the cool guy. You should get, grow it and be the crazy, family person, family business where your hair's on fire all the time. And, and then as you're getting towards your twilight years, you're going, you know what? I think we're getting too old for this. We need to start handing some of this stuff off and putting that trust in people that maybe somebody that's been with your business for a long time. We know courier companies where, they've had drivers that have been with them for 20 years and they're like ready to step back a little bit, and they go, would you be interested in kind of being our manager now? We have the same vision for this, and you've been here through it all. And they're like, absolutely, yes. So it doesn't have to be families, what I'm saying, but
I know a company in the Midwest where
Mhm.
they've been around for 25, 30 years, and the family, the children don't really want to inherit or take it over. They just want to keep working for the business.
Yeah.
And time is ticking.
Yeah.
Time is ticking. And
Yeah.
it's so, it may come to a point where, okay, we're going to bring in a different group. We're going to sell the company, and then you'll work for them.
Mhm.
Or maybe go get a different job. So,
well, I know of at least 2 courier services, one that was in Alaska and one that was in Denver. And they both had been drivers for the company at some point, and they were able to purchase those companies, and they took them to a level that company originally never thought
wow,
it would have been, and made it wildly successful in both cases.
So new
blood, new ideas, absolutely.
new energy.
So as you're building your company, you don't have to, like, there isn't a point on your plan, on your flow, where you just don't know what happens afterwards. You have to leave that open for, all the great things that are happening in your business, to be able to see that new vision and have that new vision. I think that's truly the way it is with really every company. That's the way it is, whether it's a nonprofit or a regular business, or a courier company, or even laboratories. I mean, they come and go, they sell to new people who have new ideas. They maybe split it off. One goes one way, the other goes another way.
Think of all the labs that when COVID hit.
Yes.
The labs that stayed in business, they pivoted.
Yes.
And they started doing COVID testing.
Yep.
No more cholesterol testing, no more pregnancy tests. It was all, no one was able to go in and
Nobody
get
was able to go in and get routine testing.
And so they pivoted and they started doing COVID tests, and that's how they survived.
Yeah.
So
same with the couriers too. Yeah. They had to figure it out. Those courier companies that stayed in business, like Larry, I mean, he's talked about that, how he had to change, a lot of things about his business to get through that and be able to be successful and have his head above the water through all that. Yeah. And that's why you always need to have your finger on the pulse of your own company. And that's where the admin side of the running a business comes in.
Yep.
You have to know it.
Yeah, that's so important. So that's the administrative recommendations course. Yeah. You can find it on our website, integritydelivers.com. Hover over Get Trained, and then the online course menu will drop down. You can go ahead and peruse it, and you'll find the administrative recommendations course. There you go. Yep. There it is. And so we've got so many various and diverse courses. Our library is bursting at the seams. Yeah. But we're adding new classes.
We are.
It's so exciting. Very
We've got the new marketing course that Chris came up with. It's excellent.
Hey, yeah, Chris, why don't you talk about that new marketing course?
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this course, honestly. I'll go through a little bit of the bullet points. We talk a lot about building your brand, which social medias you need to be posting on and how. We go really in depth on TikTok. Actually, I just read that the TikTok ban got extended 75 more days. So,
woohoo! How many more days?
75.
There you go.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we go very in depth on TikTok and YouTube, just talking about why their social media presence matters. And we do cover a lot of different ways to market to certain clients that you're looking to get and clients that you already have. So
yeah,
there's a lot to go through.
Yeah, and Faith's, we've got a dental course that's going to be up, should be up hopefully by the end of the weekend, early next week at the latest. And didn't she just do a podcast with you guys?
She did.
Talking about that?
About 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And they know, and you're going to tell them how to find our former podcasts, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't pop in very often, so.
So what else do we got?
I just wanted to mention one more thing. I don't know how many of you are LLCs. You probably heard about the whole BOI. It's the it's through the financial center. It's FinCEN. I have to remember all the acronyms. Anyway, it's a government entity, and they were saying that we originally came out that anybody who's an LLC had to register their business. It's around because it is trying to get rid of the money laundering and all the companies that are doing business with the United States that are not legitimate companies. They're here to scam us and to scam the American people. And so they were really cracking down on that. As of March 26th, the new final, who knows if it's going to be temporary yet, but the new final information is that only entities formed under the law of a foreign country and have registered to do business in the U.S., including any tribal jurisdiction, and that's if you filed a document with the Secretary of State or similar office. They have to register. We no longer have to register. So any U.S. person and U.S. persons are exempt from having to provide the business information on that website. And if you go to their website, I believe it's FINCEN.gov. It stands for Financial Crime Enforcement Network. And that will, so if you've done that already, it's not a big deal. It's not going anywhere. If you haven't done it yet, you don't need to worry about it as of now. And if you stay tuned with us, we do keep that updated. I know Amy on our Facebook page, she's one of our moderators. She talks about it from time to time as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we have got a lot going on. So our Facebook page is over 192,000 followers there now. TikTok is growing, and if they can find a way to sell it and keep a branch of it here in the United States, that'll be a great thing. We've got a lot of new followers on TikTok. We are on Instagram. We are on X, but we're also on YouTube, and we've been LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah.
We've had a professional presence on LinkedIn for
a long
time. Yeah. Yeah. That's how people,
at least 20 years.
That's how people found us to get us to go to Singapore.
Right.
We're talking with somebody in Great Britain. So lots of things going on there, but also YouTube. So we're increasing our watch hours on YouTube. That's what this podcast is really all about, giving you guys an opportunity. We created this podcast kind of modeled after several years ago. I had a business relationship with Jake Hatling, and on Fridays we would get together after work, and we would sit around a fire pit and have a beer and a cigar and just laugh about all the crazy things that happened in the past week. It's a way to decompress. So some of these podcasts are like that, loosey-goosey, let's laugh a little. Yeah. But we've had some great compliance people on recently, and other courier owners like Larry, telling their story. And so this, we want, hopefully grow it to get a lot more followers on this podcast, but we're providing a service, and maybe it's cathartic. We've got some people that come on to TikTok now. More and more people are coming on TikTok saying, hey, I saw your podcast. It was great. Yeah. So starting to get some feedback there, but lots of great things to come.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're watching on our YouTube. And if you're listening to the podcast, the audio podcast, don't forget to subscribe. You can hear our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, the Podbean app, Spotify, Amazon Music and Audible, iHeartRadio, Player FM, and Podchaser.
Awesome.
And shout out to our sponsor, Key Software Systems.
Woohoo!
Thank you, guys.
So happy to have them on board.
All right.
So yeah,
I would say that's a wrap. Anything else?
That's a wrap for me.
Same time next week.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Sounds good.
Hey everybody. Ken with Integrity Medical Courier Training here.
And this is what's happening, right? So with such a serious subject, but he's able to inject humor.
Take a look. waiting for this. Ooh, I'm about to make a name for myself, yeah.
I'm a medical courier. Of course I know how to use a spill kit.
Dude, I don't know what any of this is. I wasn't paying attention in the integrity training class.
Yeah, that sounds a bit expensive. I think I'll just train them myself. After all, this isn't rocket science.